So last night's edition of WWE NXT, the first Tuesday night edition of NXT on the USA Network, saw a massive moment for the NXT Women's Division, seeing new faces and old return to NXT for the first time in a while, including former Impact Wrestling Knockouts champion Taya Valkyrie, now known as Franky Monet, making her debut on the Black and Gold brand. Now, as I mentioned, there was a big moment for the NXT Women's Division on last night's Tuesday premiere on the USA Network. Now, the segment started with Dakota Kai introducing the new NXT Women's Champion, Raquel Gonzales, to a pop and a "You Deserve It" chant from those in attendance. Gonzales talked about her journey and gave praise to Io Shirai for being a strong champion going into their TakeOver Stand and Deliver Night 1 main events last Wednesday. Gonzales also gave major credit to Dakota Kai, saying she would not be where she is today if it wasn't for her tag team partner. We'll touch on that in a minute. She then declared that this is the Raquel Gonzales era and it is finally here. Then suddenly the lights in the Capitol Wrestling Center at the WWE Performance Center went out, and when they came back up, Franky Monet came out to make her debut carrying the Pomeranian dog we've seen in our recent Coming Soon vignettes. Now, as I mentioned, Franky Monet is the former Impact Wrestling Knockouts champion Taya Valkyrie, the longest reigning Impact Wrestling Knockouts champion in the promotion's history. Franky congratulated Gonzales and then did the same in Spanish. She said the best women's division in the world just got a little bit shinier and a whole lot better. She then warned that seeing as Raquel is the top of Franky's division, Raquel will be seeing a lot more of Franky Monet in WWE NXT going forward. Gonzales says Franky is lucky she's in a good mood because if she interrupts like this again, she will shove that dog straight up her you-know-what. Franky then laughed and made her exit to the apron, warning that she will see Raquel every Tuesday night. Now, after this, it was followed by a returning Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair talking. Obviously, it was a moment to prove how well NXT, or where they've come when it comes to their women's division, how great their women's division is, etc. When it comes to Taya Valkyrie, Franky Monet, I will probably go in between calling her both names because I'm just terrible when it comes to new names with new stars and stuff like that. But we will get there. We will get there when it comes to Franky Monet in WWE NXT. Look, it's a massive signing. It's a massive signing for WWE. It's a massive signing for NXT. When the news came out that Taya Valkyrie was going to WWE, I said at the time, and you can go check it out on the channel, that what a big deal it is, and that's what it is. It's a massive deal. It's a massive deal because Taya Valkyrie is supremely talented. She's great at what she does. She wasn't the longest reigning Knockouts champion for no reason. I mean, if you're going to talk about, say, WWE has the best women's division in the world, which I'd probably say it would, and when I say WWE, I'm including your NXT, Raw, SmackDown. I'm merging those all into one. But WWE, you could say, absolutely has the best women's division in the world. I think that's without question now. The fact that you've got the night 1 of WrestleMania 37 being main evented by your female talent and delivering, and you've got night 1 of NXT TakeOver Stand and Deliver being main evented by your female talent and again delivering. It was in the title of the show. Nevertheless, it goes to show, one, the confidence that they have and the trust that they have in their female performers, but also that the talent well and truly is there. The days of people saying that women's wrestling can't draw, or the days of people saying that women's wrestling is boring or it's not as good as the male wrestling, it's just, if you're saying that now, you're just in the past. You're just in the past because women's wrestling is better, bigger, and more valuable than it's ever been right now. And WWE, frankly, you got to give them credit. They're a pioneer in that when it comes to the world of professional wrestling. I know there have been other female companies around, but WWE is well and truly progressing on all cylinders when it comes to that. So I think it's admirable. I think the amount of time and money they're investing into it, I think it's admirable. And obviously the money shot last night on NXT was having Raquel Gonzales, Bianca Belair, and Rhea Ripley in the same ring, holding up all the titles, the female titles in WWE. And I think it was a sign of, look at the great talent that we churn out here in NXT. Look at the female talent that we've developed, and we've done a great job with that. And they're not wrong. They're not wrong at all. My criticisms of NXT, if anything, the positives when it comes to NXT always have been the women's division. You look at, since NXT was, I say started, obviously it was on Sci-Fi with the game show, since the modern day version of NXT, the Triple H era of NXT, since Triple H took control and it became a developmental brand and whatever you want to call it. Since then, the real shining light of NXT has been its women's division, because again, you do look at the stars it has created and fostered and put onto the main roster, whether it is Banks, Bayley, Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, even Asuka. I know Asuka, I'm a little bit like when it comes to that one because she was a big star in Japan anyway. But you look at those names and obviously now you add in a Rhea Ripley, a Bianca Belair, even a Shayna Baszler. I know Baszler was working before, but those names out there, obviously, they've made some absolutely ginormous stars for WWE, some incredibly marketable stars. You can't discredit that, and NXT has done a fantastic job. And I talk about WWE being a pioneer for women's wrestling. NXT truly was the groundswell of that. Paige, I forgot to put Paige in there, and those names are well up there, and NXT absolutely does deserve the credit for really progressing women's wrestling in WWE. My criticism is that if you look at on the other side of it, if you look at the male wrestlers in NXT, they've made nothing. They've made absolutely nothing. There's a massive problem in NXT, or the developmental system, the performance center, whatever you want to call it. There's a massive problem there that for whatever reason, when it comes to making top male stars, they just can't do it. They just can't do it. Not as if great wrestlers haven't rolled through NXT, because they have. I mean, absolutely fantastic wrestlers have rolled through NXT and thrived in NXT. Do we need to roll out the list again? Whether it's Andrade, Aleister Black, Keith Lee, Riddle, Samoa Joe, all of those names over and over again. And what do they do on the main roster? It's nothing. They don't do anything. Some of them aren't even with WWE anymore because it's that bad. So I think WWE need to, obviously, they can pat themselves on the back for the great work that they're doing with their women's division and the progression that they have in their women's division when it comes to NXT and the transition to the main roster. But what they do need to really take a hard look at themselves for is that on the flip side of things, when it comes to the males, they just ain't doing it. And again, I don't necessarily blame NXT for that. I blame the officials for Raw and SmackDown, the creative teams for Raw and SmackDown. Ultimately, the buck stops with Vince McMahon, right? It has to. It's his company. It's his show. There is so much when it comes to NXT that is good, but there's also a lot of faults there. There are a lot of faults there. There's a lot of faults in the performance center system, in my opinion, because whilst they try and differentiate themselves so much from Raw and SmackDown, NXT, it can sometimes make it a bit of a problem for the likes of Vince McMahon or Bruce Pritchard to really embrace the character, because that won't apply to a more broad audience. That's what they always say. I always go back to that WWE 24 documentary of Keith Lee, and Vince McMahon's talking to me, he goes, "You did a great job tonight, but we need to make some tweaks because our audience is far more broad." And you have to go back to the original process of NXT and the Performance Center was to get people ready for the main roster, so the transition would be seamless, and it's far from it. It's far from it. Now, I'm diverted, obviously, massively from the point there, but when it comes to Taya Valkyrie and NXT, very much looking forward to it. I think it depends what they want to do with this Raquel Gonzales reign, to be honest. It really does depend what they want to do with it, because, I mean, Raquel Gonzales, WWE, specifically NXT, Triple H loves to book a dominant champion, especially if they're a heel. Now, what's interesting about that is, randomly last night, it feels like Raquel Gonzales is now suddenly a babyface, and I don't know necessarily how I feel about that. I think she was doing a great job as a heel. I just think they're probably setting her up as a babyface because Dakota Kai is going to probably turn on her. The only thing I would say about that, though, is, Io Shirai has just been NXT Women's Champion for 300 plus days, and she was a babyface. Is it time not to have a heel champion again? I don't know, because Franky Monet certainly seemed like a heel last night, which de facto, I guess, makes Raquel Gonzales, and the promo she did and celebrating with Bianca Belair and Rhea Ripley makes her a babyface for me. So that is interesting. That is certainly very interesting, and I'm not sure it's the direction that I would have gone. But nevertheless, if we're going to get a Raquel Gonzales, Franky Monet feud in the future, that's going to be money. That's going to be money. And the reason I think it's going to be money, because I think Raquel Gonzales has improved, but any worries that you might have about a bit of greenness, a bit of inexperience, Taya Valkyrie will get her over the line, absolutely. And to be honest, like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if Franky Monet is the NXT Women's Champion by the end of the year. She's just that good. And WWE, especially NXT, when they get this seasoned talent in from the independent scene, like an Impact Wrestling, they know what they have. They absolutely know what they have. And certainly in NXT, the cream does rise to the top fairly quickly. So I don't think there'll be any issue for Taya Valkyrie in there. Now, there's a couple of other things I did want to talk about. Now, one of the big moments, one of the great WrestleMania moments of over the past weekend, especially from night one, was when Rhea Ripley was in tears on stage during the America the Beautiful for WrestleMania 37 night one. Now, new Raw Women's Champion Rhea Ripley has revealed that WWE Hall of Famer also couldn't hold back his tears when he saw a live crowd during night one of WrestleMania 37. Now, in an interview with Scott Fishman of TV Insider, Ripley said she was trying to hold it all together and keep her emotions in check, but she then noticed a very teary-eyed Edge in the backstage area. She said, quote, "It was crazy walking through the curtain and seeing the crowd and how excited they were. All of my dreams were coming true. It was something I worked toward for a long time. I was trying to hold it all together, telling myself, don't cry. Then I looked over to Edge near me and he had tears in his eyes. He nodded and winked at me. I just lost it. I could not hold it together. Then I saw this fan in front saying, 'Hey, Rhea, you got this. You're going to kill it,' giving me this pep talk. Next thing I know, I'm being shown on the big screen." Now, Ripley also revealed what WWE Chairman Vince McMahon told her after she defeated Asuka on night two. She said, quote, "One of the big ones was talking to Vince McMahon afterwards, hearing him say, 'Well done,' and that I did great. It was so surreal. It's a dream. I'm living it. To have the big boss man say, 'Well done,' is pretty insane to me." Now, that's certainly, I think she did fine. I think she did fine at WrestleMania. Not that I necessarily, it's fair to compare because I think they're different matches and I think they're different competitors and all that kind of stuff. When it comes to the female side of things, Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair stole the show on the female side of things at WrestleMania. I don't think it was, I think the match of the entire WrestleMania was the night two main event, which is fortunate because I think it saved that show because night one was by far a better show than night two. But I loved the moment of Rhea Ripley getting emotional on stage. As a fan, you want to see that it means something to the performers. And I thought it was fantastic. That moment, I mean, I was doing the watch-along at the time. We were live streaming here. And the couple of minutes before they went on the air for WrestleMania 37 Night 1, and they were doing the kickoff show, and you could just sort of hear, I don't even know if it was necessarily a rumble, but you could just feel, even watching at home, you could just feel excitement that it had been over 12 months that you had fans there, and it had been such a long year. It has been, and for a variety, obviously, you know, if you don't even talk about wrestling, it's been a long year, hasn't it? And it just felt so special. And then obviously with them singing the America the Beautiful, having them all on stage and quite literally welcoming the fans back to WrestleMania, it was an amazing moment. It was an amazing moment. And it was a WrestleMania moment. That is a WrestleMania moment that is going to live forever. Absolutely live forever. And I like the idea that Rhea Ripley was actually maybe holding it together a little bit, and it was actually Edge who was the one that was getting a bit teary-eyed and winked at her, because they were, if you go back and watch it, and they obviously pan around the stage, don't they? They pan around the stage and they show all of the superstars there, whether it's Roman Reigns, whether it's Shane McMahon, Vince McMahon, Stephanie McMahon, Triple H, you name it, they're all there. And Edge is there, and you can see him. He's looking up like this because he's just so happy, because you remember his point of view as well. He came back for that. And he had that moment at the Royal Rumble, and he doesn't know how long he's got, by the way. You know, he has been cleared, but I bet he's thinking, maybe I've got 2-3 years of this, maybe, who knows? And he wants to end it on his own terms. And like everyone, I'm sure he felt like he was not robbed, but it was tough. It was tough for everyone. So, you know, from someone that having their first proper WrestleMania appearance, I know Ripley did perform last year, but her first proper WrestleMania experience, to Edge, who's had so many, you know, it was emotional for so many reasons. And I love that moment. I love that moment. I love seeing that it matters, and I love seeing that people care. I thought it was fantastic. That was a real special moment, wasn't it? Now, speaking of WrestleMania as well, one notable absence from WrestleMania during the weekend was Reginald. Now, Reginald didn't appear with Nia Jax or Shayna Baszler during night 2 of WrestleMania when they defended their WWE Women's Tag Team Championships, of course, against Tamina and Natalya. Now, Reginald apparently missed WrestleMania 37 because he's sick. Now, Carmella's former sommelier has developed a following on social media while working with WWE Women's Tag Team Champions Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler as of late, but many fans wondered why Reginald was not with the champions when they retained over Natalya and Tamina Snuka during Night 2 of WrestleMania 37. Now, in an update, WWE NXT UK superstar Amale used the thinking emoji and tweeted about how Reginald was missing from WrestleMania during the show this past weekend. Reginald responded and said he's sick. He used the French French word malade, which obviously translates to sick in English. Now, there's no word on when Reginald will be back, but it makes sense that WWE would keep him at home due to the strict COVID-19 protocols. Now, I'm not saying, of course, that he tested positive or anything like that, but, and I don't know if I necessarily want to put two and two together, so I'm being very cautious about how I say this, because I've been very adamant in the past that I don't think it's fair to speculate on who has or hasn't tested positive for COVID or whatever. But we do know that Tom Phillips missed WrestleMania on Saturday and Sunday also because of COVID-19 protocols. Again, we don't know if he tested positive or negative. We just know that that was the reason for his absence. And obviously he was replaced by Adnan Virk starring Monday night on Raw. And that was a trip, wasn't it? That was a lot of fun. There's definitely a video in that at some point. So he did appear, Reginald, on the go-home edition of SmackDown, which was taped the week prior for the Nia Jax versus Tamina match that Tamina won by DQ. So it's unknown whether he'll be back this week. I suspect if he missed WrestleMania at the weekend, I would suspect maybe not. It might be the following week. I don't know. I didn't notice it initially. I didn't notice it initially. And then at some point in the match, I went, wait a minute, where is Reginald? The only reason I noticed it because he was on the graphics. When they were, if you watch it back during the matches on the screens around the stadium, you can see Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler in the graphic and Reginald's behind them. And then I realized, oh, wait a minute, he's not there. I wonder why he wasn't there, which is, I guess, ironic. I mean, I feel bad for him, obviously, because to miss WrestleMania is pretty heartbreaking, because that's when you get into WWE, that's what you dream about. That's the pinnacle, right? His pinnacle was winning championships and getting to WrestleMania. Those are the big moments, really, when you get into WWE or just professional wrestling in general. And when I heard the report that he was sick, that was why he missed WrestleMania, my first response wasn't like, what is it or anything like that. My first response is, well, you'd have to be pretty sick to miss that. There have been all sorts of stories over the years, haven't there, of people being ill or having injuries and just getting through because it's WrestleMania to have that moment. So I don't know what it was. Again, it might not be COVID or anything like that, just because of the protocols. If you're running a fever, if you're sick, but you might test negative, it doesn't matter. There are strict protocols in place, and to be fair, credit WWE for following them, because that's what you have to do in this modern environment right now. But it sucks for him. It absolutely does suck for him. And the irony is that one of the most featured guys on WWE television heading into WrestleMania didn't even appear at the event. I mean, one of the big criticisms, wasn't it, of the Sasha Banks-Bianca Belair feud was, why is this feud for a period of time centered around Reginald and the Women's Tag Team Champions who aren't even involved in that match? It didn't make any sense. If anything, it was very frustrating that was the case. And after all of that, Reginald himself doesn't even appear at WrestleMania, which I guess is just the irony of ironies, and it is a bit unfortunate for him, but hopefully there'll be others for him, because like I said, it's just, regardless of your opinions on him or his character or the overuse of it or the creative involved in it, whatever, it does seem quite unfortunate for him, doesn't it? So hopefully he will recover soon and he'll be back on WWE television. But of course, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on some of the stories we've spoken about today? Taya Valkyrie's NXT debut, Rhea Ripley revealing Edge was in tears at WrestleMania, and Reginald's reason for his absence at WrestleMania 37. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community, drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube, get the rankings, and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.